Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Marina Grosu from Washington, D.C. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The meeting of a high-ranking Russian Orthodox prelate with the Pope has raised questions about the Vatican's secret mission in Ukraine to broker peace. On Wednesday, the Holy Father greeted Metropolitan Anthony of Volokolamsk at the Vatican during the general audience. Both the pontiff and the Russian Metropolitan representing the Moscow Patriarchate spoke inaudibly for a few minutes. At the end of the conversation, the Russian Orthodox prelate presented the head of the Catholic Church with a sacred icon. Metropolitan Anthony is the Foreign Relations Special Envoy for Patriarch Kirill, who heads the Russian Orthodox Church. Meanwhile, the Vatican confirmed during the weekend that it is involved in a secret peace mission aimed at returning the children forcibly taken from Ukraine by Russian troops. The United Nations Secretary General warned that fighting in Sudan must end immediately to prevent additional devastation to the region due to the conflict and the escalating humanitarian calamity. Antonio Guterres said over 334,000 people have been uprooted and more than 100,000 have fled to neighboring countries since violence broke out in the African nation on April 15th. Despite numerous unsuccessful extensions of a ceasefire between the two sides, fighting has been going on for almost 3 weeks between the military and the paramilitary rapid support forces. The UN chief said that all sides must prioritize the needs of the Sudanese people, which called for peace and a return to civilian governance. As terrified civilians continue to escape the nation, top official Martin Griffiths asked Sudan's warring parties to pledge to ensure the safe transit of relief supplies. The UN World Food Programme reported that 6 trucks heading to Darfur had been looted on Wednesday. Floods and landslides in Rwanda and Uganda have claimed innocent lives. At least 129 people died in Rwanda and 6 in Uganda as a result of the heavy downpour. Search and rescue efforts are going on to locate people trapped in their homes. A video clip broadcast by the state-owned Rwanda Broadcasting Agency showed murky water flowing down an inundated road and damaging houses following weeks of rain in the area. The capital, Kigali, as well as the western and northern provinces are hilly, rendering them susceptible to landslides during the rainy season. Data released by the ministry in charge of the emergency management shows weather-related disasters in Rwanda claimed the lives of 60 people between January and April 20th, demolished more than 1,205 homes, and devastated 2,000 hectares of farmland. President Paul Kagame said his government was assisting those affected. Meanwhile, Uganda Red Cross has confirmed that 6 individuals died in the southwest Kizara district because of the heavy rain. The coronation of King Charles III as the British monarch on Saturday, May 6th, will script history for the Catholic Church in the United Kingdom. For the first time since the English Protestant Reformation, a Catholic bishop will be taking part in the coronation ceremony and bestowing a blessing on the new ruler. After Canterbury Archbishop Justin Welby formally crowns the king, the bells of Westminster Abbey in London will chime for 2 minutes, after which the blessings will begin. Cardinal Vincent Nichols of Westminster will impart his blessing on the new monarch with the words, "May God pour upon you the riches of his grace, keep you in his holy fear, prepare you for a happy eternity, and receive you at the last in his immortal glory." The Cardinal heads the Bishops' Conference of England and Wales, and he has also urged believers to pray for King Charles using a prayer card issued by the Episcopal body. A report reveals that at least 529 attacks were perpetrated by the dictatorship of Daniel Ortega against the Catholic Church in Nicaragua in the last 5 years. This year alone, there were 90 such incidents, according to the report prepared by researcher and lawyer Martha Patricia Molina. The third installment of her report, titled Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church, was published on May 3rd. It details the hostilities, persecution, siege, desecration, destruction, theft, expulsions, and confiscations perpetrated by the Sandinista regime. The report condemns the imprisonment of committed religious and lay leaders of the Church. In 2018, the Catholic Church suffered 84 attacks, while the figure was 80 during the previous year. In 2020, there were 59 incidents, while in 2021, there were 55. Last year, 161 incidents of attacks on the Church were recorded. Serbian police have detained a 13-year-old boy who is a 7th grade student who opened fire at an elementary school in the capital, Belgrade, on May 3rd, killing 8 students and a guard. The motive behind the crime is still being investigated. Police said the assailant planned the attack a month ago and carried a priority list of children to target and the classrooms he would go into first. Authorities said the boy is said to have gone to a shooting range more than once with his father and used his guns. After the carnage, the boy's parents were also arrested. President Alexander Vučić condemned the attack, describing it as the most difficult day in the modern history of the country. The government has also declared 3 days of mourning. Republican Governor Greg Gianforte of the U.S. state of Montana has signed 5 pro-life bills on May 3rd, including legislation that protects infants born alive after a failed abortion. The governor also legalized a bill that will likely prompt the state Supreme Court to reconsider its 25-year-old ruling that permits abortion under the so-called right to privacy. Yet another measure protects the right of conscience and allows medical personnel to refuse to provide any service if it goes against their conscience. House Bill 575 makes it illegal in Montana to abort viable preborn babies after 24 weeks of gestation. The governor also shared his intention to sign several additional bills approved by the legislature dealing with abortion. The Christian legal advocacy group Alliance Defending Freedom has welcomed the governor's move. The group's senior counsel, Denise Burke, said the legislation affirmed the basic human rights of vulnerable children, born and preborn. On Wednesday, Canada imposed more sanctions on Iran because of its domestic and international breaches of human rights. Minister of Foreign Affairs Melanie Joly announced that Canada is imposing additional sanctions under the Special Economic Measures Regulations. This is the 11th package of the sanctions imposed by the North American nation against the Iranian regime since October 2022. It builds on Canada's efforts to align with recent designations announced by the European Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The sanctions list 1 entity and 9 persons for their role in gross and systematic human rights violations in Iran and abroad. The individuals listed include members of the so-called Morality Police Unit that arrested Mahsa Amini. The 22-year-old's custodial death sparked widespread anti-regime protests. Canada has also targeted a deputy commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces in Sistan and Baluchistan province, where violent clampdowns against protesters resulted in the deaths of dozens of civilians. A U.S. Catholic bishop is urging the faithful to join him in praying 10,000 rosaries in May. Bishop Robert Barron of Winona-Rochester Diocese in Illinois has announced that the rosary recitations are intended for those who have fallen away from their faith, so that they may return to the church with a renewed understanding of God's love and mercy. The prelate made this exhortation to gain souls through the challenge put forth by Word on Fire ministry, which he founded. Pope Francis has also urged the faithful worldwide to recite the rosary daily this month for peace. After Wednesday's general audience, the Holy Father recalled that the Virgin Mary helps to build paths of encounter and dialogue and gives the courage to end conflicts. A UN report reveals that more than 250 million people across 58 countries faced acute hunger in 2022, and people in 7 countries were on the brink of starvation. This was revealed by an alliance of NGOs named Global Report on Food Crises, founded by the United Nations and the European Union. The report says that the number of people suffering from acute hunger is the highest in the organization's 7-year history. According to the report, the conflict in Ukraine was one of the significant factors that contributed to an increase in food costs worldwide. It also blames the ongoing effects of the COVID-19 outbreak and the changing climate for the food scarcity. 3 months after a powerful quake devastated Syria and Turkey, thousands of people still need adequate shelter, according to aid groups. The United Nations said the earthquake on February 6th resulted in the deaths of over 50,000 people and the eviction of hundreds of thousands of more people. Soon after the quake, millions were sheltered in the temporary housing arrangements, which have not yet been replaced in many regions. United Nations humanitarian coordinators say that more than 2,000 trucks reached Syria to assist the people with food, shelter, medical supplies, and other services. The aid officials express hopes that the government officials will let them continue with the services as long as possible. The hugely popular biblical television series The Chosen will be streamed in more than 300 prisons across the United States using a closed-circuit video streaming service created by the Prison Fellowship and named Floodlight to provide faith-based content to prisons across the country. The nation's largest Christian prison ministry is bringing the series to penitentiaries with the partnership of the Come and See Foundation. Prison Fellowship is streaming the series based on the life and ministry of Jesus to all inmates free of charge. According to the Fellowship CEO, James Ackerman, The Chosen will impact even more lives, as it already has more than 110 million people around the world who have watched The Chosen. The Chosen is the largest crowdfunded media project in history and has become a global sensation. And those are your latest headlines. Join us again tomorrow for more. You can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.